Dear Father Simon and the almighty administrators of absolution.
Ooh.
I don't think we've had that one before. So you get an extra point, Tony. My tale of woe goes back to around 1982, and I was a newly qualified 17-year-old driver. I was lucky enough to receive a dark green Mini on my 17th birthday. Now, before Matt starts, let me tell you, I'm not some aristocrat. I'd been earning my pocket money by helping in the family upholstery business since I was 13, and my dad says it was character building and helped me gain a good work ethic.
Good. Okay, well, I'm satisfied.
And
Well
I didn't just inherit my stuff.
No, worked hard.
So I had earned the car. I had earned it, Matt.
Yes, okay.
And managed to save up enough money for a few added extras, like wide wheels.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Now you're talking.
Is that what wins you over?
Lower it. Yeah. Chip it.
What?
Front mounted intercooler.
She's now talking another language.
I don't know
Then you
any
need
of
a bass
these
bin.
words.
Yeah.
In the waste bin?
What a bass bin. You two, where are you?
Anyway.
Over here.
Wide wheels, a sporty exhaust, and a set of spotlights that were so powerful the residents in a few Sheffield suburbs thought they saw the northern lights from time to time. So it's not headlights, there's an extra spotlight.
On top of the car?
Presumably, yes.
No.
What?
There was spotlights behind your grill.
Behind your grill?
Do you
Okay.
pimp cars for a living?
Mine is modded.
Is it really?
Yeah.
We're learning something every day.
Yes.
The last added extra was a top-of-the-range radio cassette player with graphic equalizer. Now, I didn't actually know what a graphic equalizer was, but was told it was very loud, so into the car it went. Now, as every 17-year-old knows, when something has been bolted into the car, the only thing to do is, of course, to take it on a test drive. Now, on previous test drives, I had turned left from our house and headed for open countryside, about 10 minutes away. But for some reason, I can't quite remember why, I turned right and headed for the centre of Sheffield. Now, my favourite cassette at the time was U2 live at Red Rocks. So with Bono and the lads on full volume, all was going well. That is, until the Mini started to shake and vibrate more than normal. So as all 17-year-olds do, I turned the volume up even more to cure the problem. And this is when I noticed that I was still in third gear and hadn't been able to hear the engine screaming to be changed into fourth gear. So, fourth gear engaged, all was well again. Car stopped shaking, lovely. By now I had entered the city centre and was treating the daytime shoppers to the delights of a live U2 concert from my open window. Here we go. This is my car. All right, Sheffield! And so on. They hadn't asked for it, they just got it anyway. As I was leaving the town centre, a rather smart gentleman in a big, posh new Mercedes started to pull in front of me. Now, Father Simon, I knew my highway code. After all, it's the only thing a 17-year-old reads. And it was definitely my right of way. So with a quick flash of my aforementioned spotlights mounted behind my grille, that literally stopped him in his tracks. A flick of the steering wheel and I was round him and in front of him, all the while informing him of the rules of the road. Check that out, Grandad! I'm shouting from my open window. I used some fruity language. Gladly, I don't think he heard me for all the racket that Bono was making. Check him out. Yeah, Grandad, pull over! Old guy!
Grandad?
Yeah.
Okay.
By now, the smart gentleman was pointing angrily and vigorously in front of me, gesturing and throwing back some fairly fruity retorts of his own, let me tell you. Now, I knew there was a set of traffic lights coming up, and I presumed he was informing me that they'd changed to red, so I could have let him out that way. I certainly could have done, but I was a slick young thing in a Mini and blasting out U2, and the road was mine. Move over, Grandad. It was then that the traffic lights turned red, and I drew to a stop. The car in front had a big window in the back, and there, made out of flowers, were the letters N-A-N.
Oh, no.
And I'm sitting there, and it took me quite a while for this to settle down and for my brain to understand what I was seeing. Eventually, I realised, Father Simon, I had gate crashed a funeral cortege in the only way a 17-year-old could, with Sunday Bloody Sunday blaring out of my windows. Hey! I'm sorry. I didn't notice. You know, not the most appropriate thing. Track 3, side 1, obviously. Now, the traffic lights seemed to take about a day and a half to change. I just sat and waited. and waited for what felt like hours. Behind me, I could see the angry, smartly dressed man looking teary-eyed and furious in front of me, and I could see people in front of in the front of the hearse pointing in horror. So I absolutely have to throw myself before you and the almighty administrators of absolution for forgiveness from a few people, really. Firstly, the good people of Sheffield for the awful racket I caused that afternoon. Secondly, to the smart gentleman for my choice of language. And most of all, to Nan, obviously, for interrupting her funeral. I have lost count of how many funeral corteges I have given way to over the years to try and make amends for my actions on that fateful test drive. And I am sure that will be held in some kind of balance as you decide on my guilt or not. I think my guess is I'm going to predict his Sister Bobby's going to be very hard and Matt's just going to be all flimsy. But anyway, let's see.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, at least you saw the error of your ways. At least you did go, oh, this is not appropriate. And you do, obviously, you've kind of made some kind of concession every time you've seen one. You've tried. However, the thing is, Tony, you did turn your radio down. And what you should have done is when you said you're sorry, you should have turned your music down and sat there and just very quietly waited until they were passed. I think that's what you should have done. So even though I love your modded car, and I think actually spotlights were probably below the grille, not behind it, so apologies there.
Okay,
is actually, Tony, I'm going to be quite tough on you. No, I'm not going to forgive you.
Well,
you have to be aware of other drivers, not just yourself.
Yeah, well, there's an interesting point here. Matt, what are you going to say?
Well, I think Bobby brings up a very important point there about where you are putting your spotlights in your car and doing all of your modding.
You don't need spotlights,
Yeah,
really.
exactly. When you don't really need them, do you? And putting your graphic equalizer. Nobody knows what a graphic equalizer does. Everyone just turns up the bass bit and that's it. There was never any point to those things, I always found. So I'm torn here because really, you should really have turned the music down, I think. And this idea that, ever since then I've given way to funeral corteges, we all do that. That's part of being a human being, is you give way to funeral corteges. So I am not going to